The racing saddle was his element. Out there he was a seal in water, the most natural, carefree, match-winning jockey you will ever see. The day came when he had to live only on the land, and it would never be so easy. But oh, how brilliant he was up in the main. He was just a tiny new apprentice over from Ireland when I first met Pat Eddery at Frenchy Nicholson's schooling field, hard by Cheltenham racetrack, in the autumn of 1967. Sure, he was Jimmy Eddery's son, but already there were gifts beyond genetics in the little mini-man amongst us. It was to take more than 18 months for him to get going. There was never any doubt in Frenchy or anyone else's mind that this was the real thing. The two qualities that were to mark him for greatness were already there. The most beautiful pair of hands ever seen on a jockey, an easy-going attitude that translated into a rock-solid big race temperament and concealed the determination that first won him his Polyfiller nickname when, as an apprentice, he went to fill all the gaps. The inspirational thing about being around Pat for so many years was that as a jockey, he didn't have a bad word to say about anyone. He didn't need to. He was secure in his own abilities without having to shout anything from the rooftops. Most importantly, he never lost the boyish thrill that a winner could give, however small, however big, however far afield. I was privileged to be with him when he rocketed up the inside to win the Breeders' Cup on pebbles, when he blitzed Jupiter Island home to beat the Japanese in Tokyo, and when he landed the biggest bet of my life by winning the Arlington Million on Ptolemaeo in 1983. By then he developed his uniquely effective finishing style, so bumping in the saddle unorthodox that the NBC commentator mocked "Ride him cowboy" in the replay. The development of this technique was a source of much frustration to his original mentor and continued amusement to his protégé. "He always tells me I ought to look like Jimmy Lindley," said Pat, who had started as orthodox as any other Frenchy Nicholson apprentice, "but I like to give them a bit of oomph. Anyway, it seems to work, doesn't it?" There was no guile in the question. Pat Eddery was anything but Oscar Wilde, but like the great wordsmith, he had nothing to declare but his genius. What he did on the racetrack and how he handled himself around it illuminated so many of our lives that there was a real pain to discover how difficult things were becoming for him away from the rails. A top jockey's life will always have something of the portrait of Dorian Gray about it. Whilst he is riding, he is ever young. When he finally dismounts, there's a very old picture to come out of the cupboard. When McCoy gave up in April, there was nearly as much worry about how he would cope psychologically as there was relief that he got out in one piece. When Pat had hung up his boots in 2003, everyone just blithely waved him on his way. Events turned out unhappily, and hard though we are hit by the sorrow, it's best not to linger of what we've lost, but to rejoice in what he gave.